What's going on, people? Welcome back to the Barebow Project and Peak Archery Podcast. This is being cross-posted because obviously there's not a lot of compound and Olympic recurve people following the Barebow Project. That's why there's two. However, the the topic for this podcast is applies across the board. So this weekend was the first weekend of indoor nationals. And I was, well, how can I say it? I was coaching on Sunday, got to go down and see our shooters. They had a magnificent weekend. Congrats. Shout out to Maggie Brensinger for once again breaking the world and national record for U21 and the double, as well as Nolan Nair, who also broke the, I'm going to say, Cub 2-day indoor record as well. But at any rate, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little fired up driving home and had a magnificent conversation with a dear friend of mine in regards to some coaching stuff. And this has always been my opinion in regards to a lot of this coaching and parenting of archer stuff. But I don't know if I was always comfortable saying it. And I guess maybe in some ways I've gotten to this point in my career as an archery coach that I'm past the caring if someone doesn't like what I have to say. I was a little fired up. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little fired up coming back. Last year at the Lancaster Archery Classic Easton Youth Tournament, I literally broke up a fight between two parents, or one was a parent, one was a former coach of a shooter. And archery's going the same direction, and it's going to continue going the same direction until people start speaking up the way coaches and parents act, and talk about why we don't want to act the way we act, and what kind of effect it's having on your shooters, and those around that are collateral damage when you act like a fool during a tournament and at practice. So this podcast is about that. This podcast is going to really be it's an honest and straightforward approach to the way parents and coaches should not be acting and talking about what they're really doing, because they need to have a vision past the emotional side of every little thing. Like when your shooter's things aren't going great for your shooter, what's your response to that, both as a coach and as a parent, stuff like that. So I waited a couple of days, and I'm recording this. This was Sunday that I recorded the audio driving home from Lancaster, and because I wanted to sort of, I wanted to fester on my thoughts and make sure that like posting this was the right move. And, I feel like it is. So, enjoy this episode. If it bothers you, I'm not sorry. It probably should. If it, and you'll get it. So, all right. Enjoy. Thanks for all your support. Podcast. I am recording this as I drive, so all these people are looking at me talking to myself on my way back from indoor nationals at Lancaster Archery. I am recording this because I had a very long and in-depth conversation with a good friend of mine who was a college coach while at Lancaster. We had a discussion, and it's about everything from grassroots program with USA Archery to the issues within the collegiate programs and the relationship with USA Archery and funding and all kinds of stuff. But, this podcast is not about any of that. This podcast is about parents. This is about coaches and parents. This is about coaches not knowing the rules. This is about shooters not knowing the rules and etiquette. And this is about parents not knowing their role. Period. Scratch that. Exclamation point on the parent part. This podcast is about, let's start with number one. Coaches. It is your responsibility to know and understand the rules of World Archery and USA Archery FIDA, specifically World Archery there, when you come to a tournament. It is your responsibility to know that their equipment is legal, that their equipment is within the guidelines of the rules, that their etiquette and their behavior and sense of professionalism, I don't know how else to say it, on the line and off the line, is also in a sporting manner. There will be no unsportsmanlike conduct accepted. Number one, that is a coach's responsibility to lay that foundation. If any kid that I coached acted a fool on the line, off the line, or back, I'm telling the parents about it and I'm telling the shooter about it. Period. Point blank. Coaches, if you are not willing to do that for fear of losing a shooter from your program, your morals are questionable and your integrity as a coach is questionable because you are not doing it for the right reasons. You are doing it for clout, for the volume of kids that you have, or you're doing it for money per se. If you are not willing to step up and say the things to the people that it need to be said to, you are coaching for the wrong reason. And this isn't just archery, this is all sports. But for purposes of this podcast, we're talking about archery. Okay, number one. Number two, I kind of combined one and two, rules and equipment and all that stuff. Like this just all goes hand in hand. But the last part, the parent-coach relationship, parents specifically. I have been blessed, do not get me wrong, with amazing parents who are incredibly supportive of their children and respect me as a coach. I did not always have that. Listen, I'm being completely honest. I did not always have that, and I did not always handle it correctly. I will tell you that there are parents out there that are more concerned about how they look with how their shooter is shooting and where they finish than they are about the shooter themselves. Coaches, do not tolerate that. Set your standard and set it and keep it and enforce it. Do not allow parents to walk all over you. Do not allow parents to walk all over your coaching. Do not allow parents to supersede your coaching or overstep their bounds during a tournament or even a practice. Call them on their shit. Being completely honest. That's the first part. The second part is parents. Know your role. Know your role. You are there as support staff. You are there as a gopher. You are there to get food, provide water, provide positive feedback, be supportive, no matter what that shooter is doing. Period. I might get some heat for this. There might be some coaches out there, but I'm posting this so that all of the coaches that follow me or all of the coaches within USA Archery and ASA and S3DA and all that stuff can share this and say, parents, I need you to listen to this. Because maybe they don't have the confidence or the experience or the whatever to know how to put it into words themselves. Parents, even if you are a shooting parent, okay, that's fine. But respect the coach and what the coach provides. And have an open communication between coach and parent that they understand where your
your role is and where that coaching role is, and make sure that what you are doing as a parent is only for the purpose of positive in that for that shooter, the day of, what's going on, so on and so forth. We see this probably 15 and under mostly. 14 and under mostly is where we see this negative connotation coming, where parents don't want to listen to coaches, so on and so forth. And it's a very difficult situation to juggle. I understand it's a difficult situation to walk around. Coaches, I understand it's hard, and you have to know that you need to stick to your base and your rules and enforce it. Do not let parents belittle their children, no matter the age, in any way, shape, or form. Call them on it. Do not give out free lessons. Do not give out free equipment. Do not give freebies. Don't allow them to shoot for free. Because they volunteer to coach. Don't do any of that stuff, because it just leads to problems. What you need to do is you need to be confident in yourself as a coach. Know that the coaches, the mentor coaches, the education you have, the experience you have is positive and it is good, and you trust it. When you trust that, you have no need to worry about what others are doing. It's difficult. I get it. Parents, I get it. It's difficult to sit back and allow your child to fail. But that is exactly what you need to do. You need to let your kids sit back, struggle when they need to struggle, come back from the struggle, whichever way they do, and realize that what they're doing as a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever year old has zero impact on what their life is going to be and what their future is going to be. All you are trying to do is postpone, unknowingly probably, and you're postponing them learning life lessons by catering to them and trying to sugarcoat and prevent them from failing. For the love of God, don't do that. This is a little bit of a rant podcast. I get it. I don't apologize for it, though. Stop having your kids stand on the shooting line, shoot an arrow, turn around, and look at you for validation. Stop having them turn around and look and figure out where it's at or what they need to do or which way they need to move their sight. Stop it. Leave it alone. No matter what the discipline is. Encourage your kids. You stay in your lane. That being your shooting lane. Keep your mental thoughts right where they're at. Because if that shooter is turning around and looking at you, standing back there in the benches or whatever, that shooter's looking at you and they're worried about whatever, they're not thinking about what they need to think about. That's that next arrow that's going in their bow. They're distracted. They're distracted from the moment that they release the arrow and that head turns and flips back and looks at you. Coaches, stop advocating for it. Stop allowing it. You tell them, turn around, put your concentration downrange or on the spot on that next arrow. Your concentration's there. It's not back here. You got binoculars. Look at it. You see where it went. All right, fine. Move on. In so many ways, we are counterproductive to what we teach. And it's things like that is one of the major issues that I see in archery coaching across the board. We are too worried about everything else going on, and it leads to mental lapses, mental failure, and the inability to stay in the moment. Because we are literally advocating for them to think outside of where their brain should be. We're part of the problem. Stop being part of the problem. Teach your kids the right way, and then enforce it. Stick to your guns. And call your parents on when they're having the negative effect. The Coaches and Parents Podcast. This is about positive self-affirmations and positive self-talk and allowing your children to fail. This one, I watched this happen multiple times today, including in a private lesson that I did later on in the day. Your children are going to pick up on the emotional and body language that you're putting out, the emotional aspect or feelings that you're putting off, and the physical demeanor, the body language that you're putting off when you're speaking to them. So, and that's all the time. That's not just tournament related. That's always. If you're back there rolling your eyes or scowling at your shooter, you're sending them negative thoughts. If your shooter already has self-negative thoughts or negative self-affirmations, I should be saying, if they already have that going on with the tournament, they are going to stay in that realm. You need to learn to turn your interactions to only positive and remind them when they are slipping into the negative. You cannot come down on yourself as a shooter, and parents, you cannot come down on your shooter because they'll never climb out of that. It's easy to shoot when things are good. That's when our best rounds come. But we can't always shoot our best rounds. So we have to know how to handle when they're not great. And shooting in a negative mindset will not do it. I watched a shooter today. That shooter always shoots with a negative mindset. And one of the reasons, we had a discussion, we had a heart-to-heart discussion. I said, how is it with school? Well, I can pretty much go into a test expecting to fail, but I'll always pass or do okay. Okay. So why are you going into the test expecting to fail? Well, because I'm just not that smart. Because I think the response was, because I just don't feel like I'm smart enough to fail or to pass. But it always ends up okay. All right, good. It's good. Do you know that you're smarter than you give yourself credit for? So what happens if we give ourselves permission to go into it with the expectation that we're going to ace it? I'm going to ace this test. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to prepare. I'm going to go into this test. I'm going to knock it out of the park. Well, why is it that you don't because I'll tell you why. We had an honest discussion. I said, it's because you're afraid of failing. Yes. Archery's no different. And I'm watching the shooter, and they're not giving themselves permission to succeed. They're just going into the shot with the anticipation, I always fail, so I'm going to go into it, so I'm not going to be surprised when I fail. And then that negative mindset takes over, and every shot after that is chalked up as negative. If you do not give yourself to permission to succeed, you will never, ever be okay with failure. You will never learn how to not accept but learn from failure. You will never, ever be able to truly recover with ease when things don't go your way. You have to take it on the chin, realize that wasn't the best version of you, and move on. And parents, you need to propagate that notion. Call them on their nonsense. When they're talking negative, call them on it. No, forget that. Move on. I don't want to hear about negative. Negative isn't what got you here. Positive got you here. Only positive got you to this point. Negative doesn't get us anywhere. We can learn from negative. Maybe that can, quote unquote, get you somewhere because you've learned from it. But what you learned from it was a positive. So it's only positive that gets you to the places you want to go. And if you don't give yourself permission, if parents aren't giving their kids permission, and by staying positive beforehand, And shooters aren't giving themselves permission. By staying in a positive mindset, the level and repeatability of success is going to dwindle with every negative self-talk, every negative statement, every eye roll, every huff, every pissed off moment, period. You are displaying those things. And parents and coaches, if you are one that shoots archery also, you are setting the bad example if that's what you're doing. If you're not willing to work on yourself as a coach, as a parent, as a whatever, you are self-destructing your youth shooter by sharing and not committing yourself to being more positive and more committed to that positive mindset. If you really want your kids to succeed as a coach, you will always be positive. You still be honest and positive, and as a parent, you will always be positive. That's what it's about. It's not about winning. The winning will come. I assure you, the podiums, the success, and the winning will come. But it only comes with positive aspects and moments in our lives. Winning does not come from negativity ever. Thanks for listening.